Blueface, my guy, listen up. Family, I hope you have your seatbelts fastened because what just went down at Blueface house is the kind of chaos that only Blueface and Chrisean could possibly generate on a random Tuesday afternoon. And trust and believe, when I say the Whisper Network is buzzing right now, I mean this thing is combusting in real time. The whole internet just watched armed officers roll up on Blueface's front door on a live stream. And by the time you finish this video, you're going to understand exactly why this was never really about a welfare check. This was a war shot. Somebody weaponized the system against Blueface, and everybody with two working eyes already knows who is at the top of that suspect list. So sit tight, because this one has fingerprints all over it. Now, moving right along, let me set the table for the folks just tuning in. Blueface was live. Blueface was chilling. Blueface was doing what Blueface always does. Camera on, chat rolling, joking with the audience. And then the tone flipped in a single second. Officers pulled up. Multiple officers. And the reason they gave, family, was straight out of a movie. Somebody had called in and claimed Blueface had shot 3 people inside his own home. 3 bodies. On the floor. In his living room. Except, and here's where you need to pay attention, the shooting was allegedly happening on Grand Theft Auto. That's right. A video game. Somebody used a GTA gameplay stream to summon the police to Blueface's real, physical address. That, my friends, is not a welfare check. That is a SWAT call. That is a felony. And the person who dialed that number knew exactly what they were doing. Blueface, to his credit, handled the whole situation with a kind of cold amusement. He turned to the chat and said, and I quote loosely, "Chat, who do you guys think did this? Who do you think is behind this?" And baby, the entire internet answered him in unison. Because there is only one person in this galaxy who has publicly stated she wants Blueface locked up. There is only one person who has publicly stated she wants Blueface dead. There is only one person who has been running to the internet non-stop, spinning wild allegations about Blueface, his household, and specifically about the young child Blueface is currently raising with his girlfriend Nevaeh. And that person, sweethearts, we all already know. But before we get into whodunit, let me walk you through exactly what the officers said when they came face to face with Blueface on camera. Because this is where the story gets even wilder. The officers stepped inside, cool and professional, and confirmed to Blueface that they had received a report of 3 people shot dead inside his residence. Blueface, calm as ice, cracked a smile and said something to the effect of, "Yeah, in GTA." The officer actually laughed. He said the line that basically ran the internet for the rest of that day. He said, "It's a good one. It's a good one." Because they knew. They knew before they even walked through the door that this was a prank call. This was a SWAT. And still, they had to come. Because whenever the caller invokes children, whenever the caller invokes violence, whenever the caller invokes bodies on the floor, the police have no choice but to roll out. And that, family, is exactly what the caller was banking on. Now, family, this is the part where I need to break down the actual context of this incident. Because if you're new to the Blueface and Chrisean universe, you are about to fall out of your chair. So here is the timeline. Blueface, some time ago, took in his girlfriend Nevaeh's young son, and by all accounts, Blueface has been playing an active, engaged father role in that little boy's life. Blueface has been filming the child on his streams, cooking with him, taking him to the store, showing him doing pull-ups, showing him being fed, showing him being safe. In fact, in this very stream where the SWAT happened, Blueface was casually asking the boy what he likes to eat. Hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza. The officers were literally in the middle of watching Blueface interact with this child like a normal dad when a completely unrelated woman burst into the picture, apparently the officer's welfare check subject. And she was asking to see Blueface's back, his stomach, checking him like he'd been in some kind of fight. Blueface complied. Showed his stomach. Showed his back. Showed there were no marks. Showed there were no injuries. Showed there was nothing to see. Because there was nothing to find. But here's where the Whisper Network really lit up. See, the exact reason Blueface's home got hit was because someone, and let me be crystal clear about my word choice, someone allegedly reached out to Child Protective Services and made claims about Nevaeh's son being unsafe inside Blueface's household. And listen, I don't need to name names for you to understand who I'm implying here. Chrisean Rock has spent the last several months on live stream after live stream, making increasingly wild claims about Blueface. Chrisean has said Blueface was inappropriate with Nevaeh's son. Chrisean has said things about Blueface that no woman on this earth should ever say about a grown man interacting with a child if those claims are not backed by receipts. And people close to the situation are leaking that this specific SWAT call is directly linked to that specific campaign. Because when you spend months planting a seed with millions of viewers, eventually somebody in your audience is going to pick up the phone. Somebody is going to feel like a hero. Somebody is going to call the tip line. And boom. Officers at the door. Guns in the driveway. A child in the living room. A stream still rolling. Now, family, let me be real with you for a second. This is not the first time Chrisean has gone nuclear on Blueface. Not the second. Not the third. Chrisean has openly said, on record, that she wants Blueface locked up. Chrisean has openly said she wants Blueface dead. Chrisean has openly said Blueface is a menace, a monster, a threat. And every single time she says these things, her audience, a genuinely massive, genuinely loyal, genuinely activated audience, takes those words and runs with them. They flood tip lines. They flood police departments. They flood CPS. And this is the machinery Chrisean has built. Whether Chrisean personally picked up the phone that afternoon or not is a question for the investigators. But the environment that led to that phone call being made, Chrisean built that environment brick by brick. And I want to slow down here because I want you to sit with something. Blueface has legal problems. Blueface has been in and out of the system. Blueface has a history that is not squeaky clean. If there had been anything even mildly illegal inside that house when officers walked in, Blueface could have been arrested on the spot. Whoever made that call was not calling for a welfare check. They were calling in the hopes that Blueface would be found holding something he was not supposed to be holding. They were calling in the hopes that Blueface would get taken off the streets. They were calling to make Blueface disappear. And the fact that officers walked into a clean home, walked past a healthy child, watched Blueface calmly answer every single question, and then walked out with nothing. That is a miracle. That is a genuine miracle. Because in this system, in this country, once officers cross your threshold with the assumption that you have shot 3 people, anything can happen. Anything. And Blueface, this time, dodged it. But let's pivot for a second, because I have to give Nevaeh her flowers here. Nevaeh has been quiet through all of this. Nevaeh has not been on the internet screaming. Nevaeh has not been dragging Chrisean on live streams. Nevaeh has been raising this child, running her household, and standing next to Blueface while the world throws haymakers at both of them. And the fact that Nevaeh's son had to be present, on camera, during a police raid triggered by baseless allegations, that is a form of trauma no child should ever experience. That little boy did not ask for any of this. That little boy did not ask to be a pawn in the Blueface and Chrisean cinematic universe. That little boy just wanted to eat popcorn and watch Blueface stream. And instead, he watched armed officers walk into his house because a stranger convinced the state he was in danger. Now, moving right along to the part that has the whole timeline in a chokehold. See, once the initial SWAT cleared, Chrisean's name started trending. Not because Chrisean did anything on that specific afternoon, but because everybody, and I mean every single person watching that live stream, immediately connected the dots. The Whisper Network was already saying that Chrisean and Blueface had been in a full-blown Cold War for weeks. The Whisper Network was already saying that Chrisean had been threatening Blueface behind the scenes. The Whisper Network was already saying that Chrisean's inner circle had been coaching her to weaponize CPS as a strategy to hurt Blueface. And now, out of nowhere, a random, unrelated third party calls the police claiming Blueface committed a triple homicide? The math ain't matting, family. The math is not matting. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordinated campaign. And here's where I need y'all to lock in, because this next part is the piece the internet is not talking about enough. Blueface, whatever else you want to say about him, has not been claiming Chrisean's biological child. Blueface has publicly stepped away from that responsibility. Whether you agree with that decision or not, and family, I have thoughts about that decision. The reality is that Blueface has drawn a clear line. Chrisean is not the mother of the child Blueface is currently raising. Chrisean has no legal, no biological, no custodial reason to be inserting herself into what happens inside Nevaeh's household. And yet, here we are, officers at the door. Because Chrisean, despite having zero standing in this situation, has decided that if she cannot have peace with Blueface, then Blueface will not have peace with anyone. That is what this is. That is what this has always been. And if that reads harsh, family, sit with it for a minute, because the receipts are on the internet in every single one of Chrisean's own live streams. Now let me hit you with something the Whisper Network is passing around right now. Sources close to Blueface team are saying, allegedly, folks, allegedly, that Blueface is prepared to file paperwork. Not just paperwork against whoever made that SWAT call. Paperwork against the pattern. Paperwork against the campaign. Because in this jurisdiction, filing a false report that results in armed officers deploying to a residence with the belief that a triple homicide has occurred is not a misdemeanor. That is a felony. That is prison time. That is real, life-altering consequences. And if the person who made that call is traceable, and family, in the year we are currently living in, everybody is traceable, then Blueface has grounds to make an example out of whoever picked up that phone. And if that trail leads anywhere near Chrisean's inner circle, this drama is about to graduate from Instagram live to an actual courtroom. Trust and believe. And speaking of courtrooms, let's talk about the child, because that is who this is really about. The little boy Blueface is raising had officers walk into his home. That little boy heard grown men ask if his father had shot people. That little boy had to be examined for injuries he did not have. That little boy had his safety, his stability, his sense of home ruptured by a stranger's phone call. And if you have ever loved a child, if you have ever raised a child, if you have ever even babysat a child, you know that events like this leave marks. Not on the skin, on the nervous system. That boy is going to remember that afternoon for the rest of his life. And every single adult who contributed to that afternoon, whether by making the call or by inciting the environment that led to the call, has to answer for that. Full stop. Now, let me hit you with the piece of this story the mainstream commentary channels are refusing to touch. Because I said what I said. See, Blueface and Chrisean have been engaged in a mutually assured destruction dance for years now. Both of them, family. Both. I am not sitting up here painting Blueface as a saint. Blueface has walked Chrisean into some of the darkest chapters of her life. Blueface has publicly humiliated Chrisean on more occasions than we can count. Blueface has been messy. Blueface has been careless. Blueface has been reckless with a woman who is clearly struggling. And so when Chrisean escalates the way she has been escalating, part of that escalation is a delayed reaction to years of accumulated hurt. That is real. That is documented. That is unmistakable. But, and this is the but that matters, you do not answer years of hurt by weaponizing a child. You do not answer years of hurt by dialing in a fake triple homicide. You do not answer years of hurt by using the state as your personal hitman. There is a line, and whoever made that call crossed it. Now, here is where the internet has already started splitting into two camps. Camp A believes Chrisean is being framed. Camp A believes some random troll saw an opportunity to swat a famous rapper, dressed it up as a CPS-adjacent complaint, and cashed in on the chaos. Camp A believes Chrisean has been loud, but not lethal. Camp B believes Chrisean has been publicly building this exact result for months and cannot now be shocked that it happened. Camp B believes the fingerprints are all over Chrisean's own public statements. And both camps, family, have a real argument. Both. This is not a case where one side is obviously delusional. This is a case where the evidence points in a direction, but the evidence is also downstream of a pattern of behavior from multiple people. So, when I say this next line, I want you to sit with it. The truth of who made that call may never come out, but the truth of who created the conditions for that call to be made. That is on the record. That is on live stream. That is on every archived clip. And every viewer with a working memory already knows. And here's another thing that has the timeline in absolute shambles. See, immediately after the SWAT cleared, Blueface mother Carlisa hopped online. And Carlisa, family, does not play. Carlisa has been Chrisean's most vocal, most consistent, most public opposition since the day Chrisean walked into Blueface's life. And Carlisa is now openly telling anyone who will listen that this is Chrisean's doing. That this is Chrisean's fingerprint. That this is Chrisean's strategy. And whether you love Carlisa or hate Carlisa, because family, there are viewers in both camps. Carlisa has a mother's instinct in this fight, and Carlisa is not backing down, which means Chrisean is now facing pressure from multiple directions. From Blueface directly, from Nevaeh's supporters, from Carlisa, from an army of viewers who have watched this saga play out and are done playing spectator. That is a full-court press. And Chrisean, whatever else Chrisean is going to have to answer for it. Now, before we get to the fork in the road, let me hit you with one more layer. Because family, this layer is important. Blueface is currently on probation. Blueface currently has legal obligations. Blueface currently has to walk a straight line, because any slip, any misstep, any bad break can send Blueface right back into a cell. And a SWAT call, my friends, is designed to manufacture exactly that kind of slip. It's designed to bring police to your door in a heightened state, in the belief that you have committed a violent felony, hoping they find anything else, a joint on the counter, an unregistered anything, a discrepancy in the paperwork, a friend with a warrant. Anything. That is what a SWAT call is engineered to produce. So when I tell you that Blueface's home being clean when officers arrived was a miracle, I am not being dramatic. I am telling you the sober, adult, legally accurate truth. Blueface dodged a bullet. And whoever pulled that trigger from the other end of the phone line is going to have to answer for it. Eventually. So now let's get to the question that matters, family. Because I am not here to tell you what to think. I am here to lay out the receipts and let you draw the map. So, my verdict drawers, here is your fork. Do you think this specific incident was Chrisean personally pulling the trigger, meaning she or someone in her inner circle directly dialed the number, directly gave the fake address, directly weaponized the state against Blueface? Or do you think this was a fan of Chrisean's, someone in the audience who has been marinating in months of anti-Blueface content, someone who decided to become a hero on Chrisean's behalf, without Chrisean explicitly asking them to? Because those two answers, family, lead to two completely different accountability trails. Let me hear your verdict in the comment section below. And be honest. Do not sugarcoat it. Do not perform. Just tell me what your gut says. Because your gut, in situations like this, is almost always closer to the truth than the official statement will ever be. And listen, before you scroll away, because I know some of you are already halfway to the next video, let me leave you with this. Blueface and Chrisean, whatever you think of either one of them, are two people who never should have kept crossing paths after the first breakup. Never. Not the second time. Not the third. Not the 10th. Because every single time Blueface and Chrisean end up in the same orbit, somebody ends up bleeding. Sometimes literally. Sometimes financially. Sometimes reputationally. And now, this time, a child ended up in the crossfire. A child that neither Blueface nor Chrisean created together. A child who was minding his business, eating his popcorn, telling a stranger about his favorite foods, when armed officers walked through his front door. That child deserves better. Nevaeh deserves better. And frankly, even Chrisean, wherever she is right now, deserves better than the version of herself that is currently making decisions on her behalf. Because family, none of this is winning. None of this is peace. And the longer Blueface and Chrisean keep circling each other, the more collateral damage we are all going to have to watch happen in real time. Here is what I know for certain. This story is not over. The Whisper Network is already telling me that Blueface's team is quietly building a paper trail. The Whisper Network is telling me that Chrisean's team is quietly building a counter-narrative. The Whisper Network is telling me that at least 3 other high-profile figures in the Blueface-Chrisean orbit are being pulled into this by name over the next few weeks. So, family, buckle up. Because if you thought the SWAT call was the finale, you are about to find out it was the opening scene. And I am going to be right here, on this channel, breaking down every single move, every single receipt, every single subpoena. Because trust and believe, this is heading straight into a courtroom. And when it does, we are going to have front row seats. So drop your verdict in the comments section below. Tell me who you think dialed the call. Tell me whether you think Blueface presses charges. Tell me whether you think Chrisean walks this back or doubles down. And roll over to my next drop, because I already have the follow-up ready, and I promise you, this next one is going to have you on the floor. Because family, this story is about to combust. Stay locked in.